How's it going, guys? Welcome to week 7 Tower Dive, the third episode of this season. I have a bunch of awesome guests with me again this week. We have Kiddo Fire, AD carry for AOL. We have Sheer Will, top laner for AOL. Rounding out our Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold guests is Z for Zyra, which is the captain and support for ARA. And then for Gold Plat, we have Kids See Ghosts, which is the captain and jungle for Garden Gaming, and Villain and Glasses, which is the AD carry for Active Rush. How's it going, guys? Welcome.
Hi.
Hey, hello.
Hey, glad to be here.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. So we have a list of questions here. Let's just kind of get right into it, not waste any time. The fight for 5th and 6th is currently between 3 teams in the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold. It's Active Rush Academy, Enigmatic Academy, Nevermore, and Nevermore. Who do you guys see getting left out of the playoffs? And I'm going to go ahead and start with Sheer Will.
I think ARA would be left off. From the past 2 games they've played, they've been really, really sloppy. I feel the jungler especially has not played his role correctly at all. Building poorly as well. Not padding correctly, let's say. And I think Nevermore is a really strong team. Just have not have good games in the first couple of weeks, but I feel it's changing for them.
Okay, so you see ARA being left out, and you see Nevermore might be that team that slips by them?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to Kid of Fire.
Sorry, I had to unmute my mic there. I think ARA also is going to get left out. EGA and Nevermore both have actually been looking better and better, especially EGA and Scrims. I haven't necessarily watched all of their games, but at least from what I've seen of them, they're looking better and better. Whereas ARA kind of just, you know what to expect. They kind of are the same team that they've been since week 1, which isn't necessarily bad and isn't necessarily good, but it's not a quality of a top team.
Okay. So you kind of have the same opinion. I will say, interjecting on that they've had kind of a completely different roster almost every week. So I wouldn't say they're the same team, but they have had similar results. I will agree with that. And finally, let's go with our last Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold representative here. Z for Zyra, what do you think?
So I'm actually the captain of ARA, and we have been bouncing around the roster a little bit. With that said, I feel like we have a good backbone of the team, and we're getting stronger as we go. The last few losses we've had have been to literally the first and second place team. ARA also has a win versus EGA and Nevermore. So I feel personally that EGA will be left out. Nevermore has won 3 good games in a row, beating EXE, which was a top place team at the time. So I feel EGA will be left out, and ARA will get past with Nevermore.
Yeah, I would definitely say with the way things have been trending for EGA, they've definitely been struggling to get wins. And to your guys' credit, I mean, I'm also a little biased because I am the org owner of Active Rush, and definitely have had a good record since. I mean, only like you said, only really 2 losses because of the Saren disc losses you guys kind of inherited. So, but again, I am a little bit biased, I will admit. Let's go ahead and go to Kids See Ghosts. Do you have an opinion on this?
Well, we've scrimmed EGA and Nevermore before. Like early season when we were just taking anybody to scrim, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And EGA looked actually really good. At least in the scrims that we played in, I guess they look better than EG at the time. I'm not sure how EG is now. So I feel like they'll make it, and then I think Nevermore won their last 3, right? Or last
I believe so.
Games. I think ARA will probably be left out, but I'm also not I don't have the most knowledge on the IBSG league.
Yeah, that's
so
fair
that's
enough.
just my guess. Yeah, that's just
fair enough. So finally, let's go to you, Villain.
Once again, I am Gold Plat, so I don't necessarily follow it the most, but looking at the schedules, looking at the win-losses, like Zyra mentioned, they do have the big wins versus Nevermore and versus EGA previously, going for Active Rush Academy. So I think they might squeak by as that 6th team. Obviously, it's the second half of the season. Everyone's still got to play everybody once again. But I will give the edge to Active Rush in the fact that they have beaten them before. if they can beat those two teams in these next 2 weeks, I think that's going to be really the big decider. Is I think Active Rush plays Enigmatic this week and then Nevermore next week, or vice versa. So I think by the end of next week, we'll really know kind of where that playoff shakes out. But I would give the edge to our Academy team. Once again, that biased. But then I'd probably say Nevermore's been looking up recently. So I think they're going to squeak by as well with them, probably taking 5th above Active Rush just by some of the matchups.
If I can add to this, it's true that Nevermore next week, well, week 7, has a tough week with having to fight AOL and Sad Boys after that.
Oh yeah, that is definitely true. I definitely have like 2 tough games coming up, which are maybe likely losses, so that will definitely hurt them in the standings. We'll see if Nevermore's kind of just gotten like maybe some of the easier wins in the Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold, because there's definitely those 3 teams at the bottom that seem to struggle and against everybody. In particular, I mean, you got OBL giving free wins to everybody, so they're guaranteed going to give a win to each team that still has them left on their schedule. And then you have Fight Club, which has just really struggled to get a win this season, which I'm still hoping for. I really love an underdog story. The only team I'm not rooting for them against is Active Rush Academy, again, because of my bias. But it sounds like as far as our Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold representatives go, I mean, it is both AOL, so, but it sounds like they have seemed to fare that Active Rush is kind of the underdog in that situation. So I'm definitely excited for these games coming up. There's definitely going to be playoffs being decided, I mean, within the next week or two, basically. With those bottom 3 teams, or those 3 teams on that bubble. So we'll just have to see as time goes on and the games get played out. Let's go move on to our next question. So EG has shot up in the standings from 10th in week 2 to 3rd currently. Are you surprised? And if you are, or where do you see them ending up by the end of the regular season? Where do you think what can they achieve? What's the ceiling? And let's go ahead and start with our Gold Plaque representatives this time. Let's go ahead and start with Villain.
I'd like to say about EG, I think Nova Galaxy's been absolutely smurfing lately. His Rek'Sai has been popping off in a lot of these games, and credit to the buffs helping that out, and people not really respecting it yet because EG LOL was kind of the meme at the early start of the season. But I think Nova Galaxy is really one of the big reasons for their rise, and their roster probably just gelling a bit better in these games.
Where do you see them ending up by the end of the season?
I think they can hold on to that 3rd place. Classic Esports has had a bit of a struggle since their big upset win over Guardian. And I think us and Guardian are a bit too far ahead for anyone to really catch us at this point. So I think maybe 3rd, 4th, maybe Midwest can compete with them, but I don't really see the Moombas catching up or KFC catching up in Pursuit down there. So I think they'll probably stick right about where they are.
Yeah, and I actually I kind of like what you said there with maybe Midwest Express possibly contesting them, because I do think those are the 2 teams that maybe line up the best, especially skill level wise. I mean, EGG has looked great, so maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they've played since, or if they have, I think it was a close game if I remember correctly. But I know they got Bladed Thesis now on MWE, so I cannot imagine that they haven't gotten better since adding him to the roster. So I'm definitely excited to see that matchup whenever it arises. Actually, I think it happens this coming, or did it happen last week? It might have just happened last week. But anyway, we'll talk about that when we get closer to the final 2 questions. Kid Seaghost, how about you?
EG has definitely looked better. I caught a game and watched them, their most recent one. I forgot who they played, but I watched that one. And they did well. Rek'Sai is broken, so you gotta ban that against, especially someone who can pilot her well, like Nova can. So I feel like if that pick gets taken away, he doesn't have very many others, in my opinion. So I feel like they're gonna keep their 3rd spot, and just like Villain said, I feel like us and AR are 2 ahead, and our schedule, I don't want to say it's easy for the rest of the split, but it's we've got our tougher games behind us, like with our upsets and stuff that we gotten, and we got our roster all together. And
okay,
that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, so you don't see GG maybe having any more trouble throughout the rest of the schedule?
No, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll end up in 3rd or 4th, depending on how well Midwest plays.
I actually apologize. I meant GG. Do you guys think you'll have any problems? Because you mentioned possibly having your harder games behind you. Do you guys maybe think to win out the rest of the schedule you have, or?
We have you guys. So that's gonna be a tough game, obviously. But I feel like I think the worst is behind us.
Okay.
when it
Fair
comes
enough.
to regular games.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's go ahead and go to Z is for Zyra.
So I think EG they started off bad, but that's because they played kind of the first, second place teams early. So we're going into week 7. They're gonna be playing against these kind of bubble teams as well with CER, and they're also playing GG, which is second place. I honestly think EG will lose both those games now. With that said, I still think they're gonna end up like 4th, but with Dinsoff, they're playing Dinsoff, which is CRE, and the GG team, which is who's on
Guardian
GG?
Gaming.
Yeah, Guardian Gaming. I feel like they've been winning, and they actually took the game off of you guys, right? AR? Did
Yes,
they
they
beat
did.
y'all? I feel like they have they're going on the right path. I think if they keep going, playing well together, they're gonna be able to beat them as well. So
Okay. So you see EG possibly losing both games this week.
I think they're gonna lose both games, but still stay at like 4th, 5th area.
Okay. So yeah, I definitely expect them to make playoffs at this point since they've kind of made this run recently. But yeah, I could see them losing. Those are definitely 2 other probably tougher games that are left on their schedule, for sure. So those are definitely 2 games to watch. What about you, Kid of Fire?
Um, I think Shuno is becoming a better player for EG, and they look like they could make some moves. I mean, the ceiling is whatever you want to make of it. I don't mathematically know what their ceiling would be, but I mean, I imagine if they're like top 3, they could probably still reach first by the end of the playoffs. How many weeks are left?
I believe 4 weeks, including this week.
All right, well then, yeah, they can probably reach first realistically if they, play other cards right and get
Well-
better and better and better.
Mathematically, yes, but I doubt it. I don't think Active Rush will drop more than 2 games, and possibly AG having a perfect record till the end of the season.
I will also
Think-
say that I
think-
think. Sorry, I don't mean to stalk over you, but I'll also say I think Shuna's been kind of on the me train of Ezreal's really broken right now, and so I'd love to see him play something besides that pick where he's excelled on in recent weeks.
I can agree, but I mean, hot takes are always nice, so I'll be the kid of hot takes and go. They'll be first before playoffs.
There you go. I mean, you heard it here first. Kid of
respect it.
Fire is a EG
I
supporter.
respect it.
I think he's a little delusional like Nova, but hey, again, I have some bias. So let's go ahead and move on to Sheer Will.
I did not follow the GC, the Gold Plat League much, but from the standing, I can see that it's really congested into the playoff seats, right? We have triple tie in the 7, 8, 9 position, and from seeing earlier today, the EG boasting a lot about them being number 1 and all their perfect record. Well, not perfect record, but a 6-1 records since their full roster, quote unquote, have been on. But I don't think they'll make it first position. It's a really, really steep mountain to climb, just mat wise.
Yeah, it definitely would be hard for them to get all the way up to first, I think. But I mean, with the way they've been playing, they definitely have looked much stronger I think they can definitely contest for those spots. We'll see. Like you said, mathematically, it might just be really hard unless AR and GG both kind of just start losing a lot of games to like the underwhelming teams, so to speak. But I am a little surprised about EG's climb. I mean, maybe with their roster changes, maybe not so much. Like if they would have kept the same roster and climbed, I would have definitely been surprised. But I'm still a little bit surprised at how much success they've had. Every time I look into the Gold Plant results channel, I just see another win for EG. So props to them for making that comeback, and I definitely think they look like they could be contenders and maybe should be kind of not just kind of shrugged off as EG law. Do you have something else to say?
It's all about consistency, right? And I think the 2 teams in the Gold Plat League, as far as I can see on the standing, is Active Rush and GG, right? They've been consistent since the beginning of the season, and only recently has EG been climbing. And we'll see if they can keep going with their 2 games this week.
Yeah, definitely. This is a big week for them. I will say it's always nice to be like kind of the hot hand, kind of like the March Madness. You always kind of want to ride that like team that's hot right now, especially when you're making your bracket, for instance. But Yeah, I definitely think EG has the potential to kind of contest those spots. We'll see how it is. Kid of Fire seems to think so, and Nova definitely seems to think so. But we'll see if they're both just delusional and maybe EG has an 0-2 week. But let's go ahead and move on to the next question. So, what team in your division? So, I want you guys to reference only the division you're in. So, we have 2 gold plat or actually 3 gold plat representatives, and then 3 iron, bronze, silver, gold representatives as well. But who has the best macro in your division, and who has the worst? So let's go ahead and start with Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold this time. So let's go to Z for Zyra.
Well, I'm kind of being biased, but I feel like with a little bit of help from you and Gimpy from our Active Rush team, I feel like I'm doing a lot of the most of the macro, and our macro has been good even on our losses. We've lost with a 15-1 Riven top that just kind of snowballed, and we lost to another York that kind of just 1v9'd. And that wasn't a macro. That was more of a skill matchup. So I feel like it's either us, ARA, or AOL, who has actually been really strong and has shot up. Like they beat all the top teams recently, and they're sticking with it too. So I think it's between us or AOL.
Okay.
With the best macro. As the worst, that's tough. I would have to probably say EGA. I feel like they're taking a lot of wins from their laning. And so when they get to group stage, they kind of like just all their games have been like equal, like no blowouts or anything. It's been kind of back and forth, and they just finally get that one team fight at the end, and they win off of that, which is not a bad thing. But it's like not super macro. I think they're winning off their skill more than anything.
Which team you're saying?
EGA.
Okay.
And I'm kind of glad you say that because it's not necessarily the worst macro doesn't necessarily mean the worst team, right? It doesn't necessarily mean like, for instance, I think Fight Club's more of their issue is just their individual play and skill needs to improve before they can even really worry about macro because it seems like they lose games just in lane. You know what I'm talking about?
Exactly. So yeah.
It's definitely when you're answering this question, definitely look at teams that possibly could just be better. Like they have the skill to do it. Can they just not make it work with macro decisions and those like later mid-game rotations and just the calls, so to speak. So let's go ahead and I do like those those takes. I kind of agree with mostly what you said. So let's go ahead and go to Kid of Fire this time.
Again, biasness might show through, but I mean, I have some reasons. I think that our team almost certainly has the best macro. If you go back and look, we have smashed some fools this season. 22 minutes and 10 seconds, I think, was our KWB win, for example, who's now the 3rd best team in the league. As well as if you go back and look, anytime we've been behind, I think anytime we always come back. We always come and find a way to make it work. We have incredible players in every position, really. And then, we're able to just kind of take a lead. Whenever we have a lead, you're done. We can just absolutely hold you down to the ground and take your next.
Okay, so definitely maybe a little bit
And
biased.
as far as the worst macro in the league, I would have to go with OBL because they literally lose every game. They can't even macro their out-of-game stuff to make sure that they can, participate and have bans, and then they cry like little babies and leave. That being aside, I actually have to agree with the EGA point that they probably have the worst looking as far as just pure macro in the league so far. But I mean, it's pretty much AOL and then everyone else anyway, so whatever.
Okay, so you kind of agree with the fact that like EGA being the worst is in like they maybe have the skill to be a lot better, but they just can't seem to make those decisions in the later game. And then you may be a little bit biased because you were pretty enthusiastic about your answer for the best team macro-wise. But yeah, I mean, I like the confidence, man. That's what I live and die by. So let's go ahead and move on to Sheer Will.
Yes, well, I think for the best macro, as Kid said previously, AOL is the best, and by far, because the 2 games that AOL fell behind was versus Sad Boys and EXE, which were at the time the top 2 teams. And
well, sorry to interrupt. They also fell behind ARA as well.
Did we?
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't remember. And well, we fell behind against those 3 teams then, and we still managed to pick up the win, and without losing any like too much ground into the map. What else? And for the worst macro, I'd have to pitch in 3 teams together. Would be Cola Brigade, Fight Club, and ARA. I'm just saying this because of what I remember and what I saw a bit on the stream, but they just crumble so quickly. Not necessarily against us, but against other teams as well. And yeah, that's my take on it.
Fair enough.
But is crumbling macro? Like per se, it's like maybe it's a team comp thing or maybe it's a synergy thing. That might not be macro.
We have to define macro as well.
It kind of all goes in together, really, right? So the way that I would say that you can look at a team and say that they have good macro, it's easier to macro when you're ahead. So what you really look at is teams that have been behind, especially significant amounts, that can turn it around. That means that they're outplaying you on the map, not as an individual. So like, if you look at the teams that have the most time being behind but yet winning anyway, that's going to be your answer almost certainly for the best macro. Obviously, you have to have an eye test, a visual test too. But that goes into macro. Your macro is based off of your composition, and your coach and your team are the ones who decide upon your comp, which should ultimately decide your macro too. So I mean, that's all kind of the same thing.
Like if I could take our last game against Sad Boys, for example, Fridge out macroed me at some point in the early game for me trying to rotate on the dragon with my teleport, then he just smashed the turret really, really quickly. This is a part of out macroing, but can they sustain it throughout the game?
Yeah, I would actually say it's more not necessarily him out macroing you. It's more you having bad macro by making a play. And actually, I remember because I casted this game that it ended up working out because they overstayed and they had bad macro decision. It was kind of both teams like AOL made a bad macro play by doing the TP because it shouldn't have worked, and then Sad Boys made a bad macro decision by staying when they could have just gotten free tower top. Yeah. I will give honorable mention. I do agree that I think AOL has the best macro in Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold currently. But I do want to give honorable mention to Sad Boys because I actually think that their macro in that game, they made a couple really good calls when they were so far behind and didn't really have the comp to win. Like, they didn't have a super easy comp to pull off in that game, but they still made a couple of good macro calls to be able to get, like, for instance, the top inhib and kind of trade that mid inhib, even though they were, like, mostly, I think 2 or 3 of their members were dead. They were able to basically backdoor that inhib, which I think was a great macro call because it's kind of making the best out of a bad situation, right? So, but let's go ahead and we've spent a lot of time talking about Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold for this question, so let's go ahead and move on to Gold, Plat. I want to talk to Kids See Ghosts first.
So there's definitely a trend of being biased towards your own team when it comes to this thing. But I feel like we actually do. It's just like in our games, we tend to go late a lot, and if you're playing late, you need superior team fighting and superior rotations. And I feel like when it comes to us showing that we can fulfill that when we have our full roster and just like that's the way we play, I feel like we have the best macro. But there's also honorable mentions, like AR has pretty good macro, and I think that one second, I need to look at the teams. The Amumus and had fared well against us when it came to macro with that really late game. You know the meme, double gathering storm, and then yeah, I feel like those 3 actually have pretty good macro. And then when it comes to worst, I'd actually say it's EG. They have better macro than their academy team. Like I said that earlier on in the season. But I still think that theirs is probably the worst out of teams to be considered. Because, like Resurrected and 3WD have their problems when it comes to macro. But I feel like in an established team, they have the worst, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. I definitely think EG is a good choice. It's actually my choice. I'm going to go ahead and interject my choice now as we're talking about it later. Because of the fact, they're one key. They're a very obvious team in my opinion because they seem to just throw at Baron like 8 times in the season already.
Yeah.
How many Barons have gotten stolen from them because they go for a 50-50 when they're just very, very far ahead? How many Barons have they just thrown the game in general because they get caught out because they just don't respect their team, the enemy team enough? Just that's like a perfect example, I think, of a team with bad macro. If they can look, and they might have looked to, or they might have improved it since I've last seen them. I know they've had a couple like off-stream games, I believe, recently. So we'll look to see if they can improve on that, because I definitely think they have a potential to be for sure a top 2 team if they can improve that and not kind of be in the bottom dwelling of the macro game. Because I definitely think MWE, 3 Doors Down, or Third World Democracy, sorry. I definitely think so, teams like that, like those middle teams, just mentioning a few, definitely have like I think they might be a little bit weaker in skill, but their macro is better than EG, for example.
Yeah.
So before we're wasting more time, let's go ahead and go to Villain.
Hey, that's me. And keeping on the trend of definitely no internal bias. I think ActiveRush as a team, we have probably one of the best concise shot calling systems. Obviously, it's hard to say in terms of like I don't know how everybody else's comms are, but just playing with the team, our macro tends to be very organized and very planned out, I would say. When we're behind early game because we pick scaling comps, we're able to really control the map with vision. And credit to my support, Daddy Zillion, one of the highest vision scores in the league every week, even when we drop games or have worse early games. And the biggest thing about macro, it looks really easy when you're ahead, and it's hard to do when you're behind. But when you're ahead, the biggest thing about macro is being able to use the vision to choke people out and how fast you can end the game off that. I think in the recent weeks, we've really improved in that as a team as ActiveRush. I think Guardian Gaming is one of the better teams overall at it because they've had generally faster game times than some of the league, unless it's like a hard stomp game. But in terms of our games, some of them are, 5, 6, 7 kill games early on for 15 minutes. And then suddenly we win one fight, we take one bear, and the game's over 26 minutes. I think that's one of the best signs of who's really the cleanest of teams in the league. And you could say the best macro. So I would argue us or Guardian Gaming, probably top 2. I would touch on EG towards one of the worst teams. And actually, I would say the Amubus have not impressed me at all when I played against them in terms of macro decisions. It just seems like they're one of those teams that likes to just move around as 5 on the map. And, they're losing waves in top. They're losing waves in bot lane. They're letting us just push up the wave and let it push up. And then eventually they're like, oh, we got to go answer that. And then we get a free Baron off of it or get a bunch of vision and, take the red and things like that. So in terms of macro, once again, just like it's very hard if you don't have a concise communication and you don't have someone willing to just say, hey, let's go do that. Hey, let's go do this. We need to do this right now. And, you need some general knowledge as a player. Like, I don't need Rutledge telling me, hey, Villain, you need to be in mid lane right now clearing a wave every single time. I can generally assume that myself. And I think between me and Rutledge, we have a really concise kind of shot calling for ActiveRush.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm going to go ahead. We actually need to keep moving on, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this question off. But I would, to say my 2 cents, obviously I'm a little biased as well. But hey, if you want to be biased, you can come on the Tower Dive and be biased all you want. I'm not saying you can't be biased. But yeah, definitely take everything we say with a grain of salt if we're talking about our teams. But I also agree. I think ActiveRush, also because of consistency and the fact that we can end games off getting that one big objective of winning that one team fight, and then the game is just kind of over. We've done that, I think, for the majority of our wins. And the one game we were behind, or the one game we actually ended up losing against GG, we were able to stall the game out for a pretty long time. I think it was mostly a problem with our comp, and we didn't have the tools to win the game, and they just outplayed us most of that game. But yeah, so I would say us though, just from the consistency and how we generally end our games. And then for worst, it has to be the EG, like I mentioned earlier. I think they have the skill to be in the top 2 and really can kind of trade games off GG and AR respectively, but they just don't have the macro for it. I think AR and GG, that's what keeps them ahead of the other 2 teams. Not necessarily skill, it's mostly macro. But let's go ahead and move on. For these last 2 questions, definitely try to keep your answers short and sweet because these pretty much are going to be kind of consistent weekly questions that we're going to hear on Tower Dive. But I'll go ahead and start this off. What was the biggest surprise and or upset or any kind of thing that happened in week 6 that you want to talk about? Try to keep it to like one thing. And let's go ahead and just start with, we'll go back through the gold plat. Villain, what do you think?
I'm going to go ahead and shout out my boy Draconic70 coming in for third world domination. I think he's a really, really good player. I played with him previously on a league real quick. And I think he was really pivotal in their turnaround now, kind of making a push towards playoff and beating Guardian Gaming.
Okay, very nice, very nice. It's always nice to have a player so you can like kind of know he's going to bring a lot to that team. It was off stream, which kind of sucks, but definitely kind of a surprise there. Let's go ahead and go to Kids See Ghost.
Yeah, we got smashed by 3WD. So I'm gonna say that's the biggest surprise.
Shocker.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like I was not expecting that, to say the least. But well played from them, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at that game results, man, that's that's a hard one to not say. Was
Yeah,
very, very much a
was-
surprise.
That was a sad one for sure.
So Sheerwill, what do you think?
I think the Nevermore EXC game was a pretty good surprise. Just from the stats alone, you can see it was a pretty close game. 22 kills to 23 kills. 2 Drakes each, 1 Baron each. Feels like a really, really close game. I might have to go watch it just to see if it was a Clown Fiesta or just a really tight game.
Well, knowing how those Iron, Bronze, Silver, Gold games look sometimes, AOL and Sad Boys might be partially exceptions, but the rest of it can be a Clown Fiesta at times, for sure. Let's go ahead and go to Zyra. Z is for Zyra.
Or not.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna actually say Nevermore versus EXE as well. Nevermore has been winning recently, and EXE has been falling down. However, Nevermore also beat EGA, and EXE beat EGA. So with Nevermore beating EXE, I feel like they're the ones rising. So I think that's the bigger upset.
Okay. Kid of Fire, how about you?
All right. So this week I was actually like super busy. Pretty much the only thing I was able to do is play our game. So the only game I have any experience with in week 6 was ours. I'll say the only surprise then, with that in mind, would be for our team. Normally you would think that the huge carry, we normally get carried by either our top or mid lane. I kind of stepped up that game and it was really nice. So yeah, go Kid, awesome.
Give yourself
AOL's
a little,
the best.
Give yourself a little mini high five here. I'll give it for you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. See, I didn't watch any other games, so I didn't know what to say.
It's okay. It's okay.
You can pat your back now. Go ahead.
So for my opinion, I was actually really, I want to just give, this is going to be my little moment of just going to people getting banned in Duo Esports, especially for posting bad content, guys. Like, I just want to give, this is for the whole league reference. Like, does Duo Esports make some, are there some gray areas where you maybe disagree with a call or you disagree with the rules? Sure. But like everything is very clearly laid out in the rules. Please go read them. And then also just don't be that guy to do stuff like that or to get tilted or just don't. There's a point where trolling becomes too far. And that's why we had SCOM get banned, which is definitely very bad for Classic. I think they were definitely making a rise. And if they could have just looked for that consistency, but it sounded like they kind of just tilted after that game. I actually didn't see it all myself, but I'm just going to say this is a little plug here. Read the rules as a Gen staff member. Please, please, please read the rules. Let's go ahead and move on to the last question. Who is your match of the week and why? Let's go ahead and start with Kid of Fire.
Let me just quickly look over here again. Week 7, yeah.
Okay.
Week 7.
Just to get off the AOL train, I actually like KWB versus EGA actually a lot because KWB lately, they're definitely the third or possibly the second best in the league right now. I think. I don't know if they play Sad Boys again, but if they do, I think Sad Boys should watch out.
They have the skill to be second, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Versus EGA, who is like we were talking about earlier, is rising. They might have their problems. They might fix them. That's why it's a great team to watch right now. Because they might come out and just stomp KWB. You don't know. Or they might just come out and be like, all right, well, we're just going to let you have our Nexus by, either one. Let's see who shows up.
Yep. I definitely think that's going to be a good game to watch. And it's also very important for EGA's playoffs. Like, it's going to be watching them in ARA kind of throughout these next couple of weeks of who's going to drop, or even Nevermore, excuse me. But yeah, definitely that's a good game to watch. I'm going to mix it up a little bit here and kind of mix in the Gold Plant representatives as well. So let's go ahead and go to Villain.
I mean, I think there's one clear match that you gotta watch if you're interested in the playoff race. GGEG plays this week. That was a tongue twister. Second and third place teams. Guardian Gaming, bit of a slide here. They've dropped a couple games in recent weeks, but I mean, they're still a great team. And if EG is really gonna contest for those top spots, it's time to put up or shut up, as you say. This is their chance to really make that claim for second place here. So I look out for that game. I'm hoping for EG just to put a little bit more space up in the number 1 spot for us. But yeah, that's my pick of the week.
They are claiming first place, though.
Yeah,
They are
I mean,
claiming
they can
first
try.
place. I mean, they're boasting for it. That's why this is one of the top game in the GPCS. That's for sure.
Well, Shuna knows where to find me in the bot lane.
Definitely looking forward to seeing if Nova is going to put up or shut up. I agree with that warning exactly. And even if he does, he's still got to go through AR, which the last time we played, you lost. So just going to reference that. Let's go ahead and go for Zeus for Zyra.
So I actually have a few matches. However, the two matches I feel like are the kind of oddballs are Nevermore. They've won 3 games recently, and they're playing against first and second place team this week. So I think that's something to watch out for because they won 3. If they could take a win off of one of these top 2 teams, I feel like they're coming out of nowhere. Also, like the kicker is ourselves. We're playing EGA, and that's kind of like the bubble match as well. The winner of this game will probably make playoffs. So those are my 2 matchups: watching Nevermore and ARA EGA.
Yeah, the game is definitely massive for both you guys. Definitely whoever gets that win definitely has a big advantage on the playoff race. Nevermore would still kind of be contesting whoever the loser is of that match, but I think whoever wins that is likely going to finish in the playoffs. Let's go ahead and go to Kids See Ghosts.
Well, if you want to watch EG lose, watch the EG versus GG match. I would say that the best match would be probably MWE versus Jaw because that is a pivotal match when it comes to seeding, and that's all we really care about right now. Like that's what people should care about is playoff seeding. So I feel like that's a big match because they're one game from each other from 3rd place for Jaw, and then MWE can drop to potentially 6th off that loss. So I think that if you want to watch for how playoffs are going to look like, it's going to be MWE versus Jaw. But if you want to see Nova Galaxy either win or lose, watch the EG versus EG game.
Yeah, it's definitely another hype game. I think there's a bunch this week that are going to be very important for playoffs. Of course, you can say that every week, I guess, but I just think there's a lot of great matchups this week. And finally, let's go to Sheer Will.
Probably in the same direction as Z for Zyra. Both Nevermore games are pivotal for them making the playoffs or not, and for AOL and Sad Boys to see who can actually clutch the number 1 seed. And in the GPCS, I will go and watch the EG versus GG.
Yeah, should be a good game. I'm going to probably be watching it as well. For myself, I'm actually, ever since I actually really didn't see the GG losing to 3WD so convincingly. I thought it was just like a close loss, but since seeing that very convincing win, I'm looking at 3WD possibly, especially against my own team AR on Sunday night, the final game of the week, as being a possible game that might be super close that maybe I didn't expect to be going into this week. So I might have to myself be prepping for that game a lot. So maybe that's something to look out for because they might be a team on the rise if they're able to take Guardian Gaming down with such ease. But that's going to conclude it for this Tower Dive session. I hope you guys really enjoyed. I want to thank again all my lovely guests for all your great opinions, perspectives, maybe a little bit of biases and some flame, but hey, that's what Tower Dive is for, right? So please join us next week for the 5th episode of Tower Dive. Likely, if you want to be a guest, be looking out for a Monday or Tuesday recording because that is when we usually do so. But this is your host, Rutledge's Beast, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. See you guys later.